Hello there, ASR founder again, and I'm going to provide you with a personal update. I just finished reading Professor Emily Horowitz. Did I pronounce that right? Emily Horowitz. Her book, From Rage to Reason: Why We Need Sex Crime Laws Based on Facts, Not Fear. So I'm going to give amateur review because I'm not a professional book reviewer. Right? Give you my take. But first of all, I bought the book in September, and the reason why it took me so long to finish reading it is because I usually do my reading as I'm traveling through the transit system, the New York City transit system, and I'll have my phone and I'll be on the Kindle reading books and other stuff that way. And as you can see, this is a physical book, so a lot of times I would leave it at home and say, because my backpack be already full and I don't be want to put something else in there. So I said, okay, I'll get to that when I get home. Then I get home, I'm tired, and I don't end up not reading it. But anyway, let's just talk about the main thing somebody would want to know. As a person negatively affected by the so-called sex offender registry, and even if you aren't, should you buy this book? I'm going to give you the answer now. You don't have to wait till the end. I would say a resounding yes. The first reason is, and this is a reason that's very important to me, she talks about, let's say in her introduction, because I'm going to give you some tidbits throughout the books so you can know what to expect if you did get the book. I'm not going to give the ending away because you have to buy it for yourself. But let me tell you what she says. Terminology. In this book, I use the phrase, quote unquote, sex offender almost solely in directly quoting a comment during an interview or as a passage from an article or a book. So she addresses that straight up. I'm a big believer in not denigrating and dehumanizing yourself. A lot of people still use the term, and even when talking about themselves or their family members, they will call themselves a sex offender. Well, my personal opinion, I use the term self-respecter, as you can tell. Why? Because your words have weight. Things you say have, they carry weight with them, right? Every time you call yourself a sex offender, it does something to you. Every time you call yourself a self-respecter, it does something for you. My personal opinion. Now, what else can you expect in this book here? Let's go through the chapters here. It's 7, well, actually it's 8 chapters. There's 7 chapters, and it's conclusion. The 8th chapter is really the conclusion. I'm actually going to start with that a little bit here. Worse than murder. That's what she has here. Worse than murder. And I, gave that some thought. Actually, when you think about that, that's kind of absurd, right? God forbid. Now, if you have a person that says that, they would say something like a rape is worse than murder or some other sexual offense. You're almost tempted to say, how do you know? Have you ever been murdered? How do you know that? I would say, listen, what you do is say, all right, we could go to YouTube University and you could just sentencing hearings of defendants, and then you will find that the people who were sexually harmed and the people whose family members were murdered, when you're sexually harmed, I'm talking about the victim, they can speak for themselves, right? The family members that are murdered, of course, they can't speak, so the family members speak for. They say pretty much the same thing, right? And let's say, God forbid, you have a situation where your daughter is sexually assaulted. Are you really going to say, well, damn, he should have killed you? No, of course not, because the person is here. You'd rather if you love your kids, you'd rather your kids here than not be here, unless they're in what they call like, sometimes you get hurt real bad. You're in a vegetative state and you're not aware and stuff like that. You're so brain dead and stuff like that. But you have people that are harmed in all types of ways, and if they're conscious, their family would rather than there. In that particular subject, it's a lot of layers to that when I think about it, because what they're really, I think, are saying is a person who commits this type of offense, which is a murder, is a better quality of person, or that person could be redeemed, and the person who commits a sexually based offense cannot be redeemed. And when a person says that, at that point, that's when you introduce the statistics about the recidivism. The recidivism is low for people who, I forgot exactly what it is because it just came to my mind as I'm doing the video. The recidivism is low for people who commit sexual offenses and stuff like that. So that doesn't really bear out in facts. But if you start off with statistics, people don't want to hear it, because when you talk about crime, violent crime, especially sexually based offenses, it's a more emotional thing as opposed to cerebral, where you're going to just talk about statistics and stuff like that. And also, when you compare murder or some other type of assault to a sexual assault, a lot of times we can envision people, well, I won't say people can envision themselves committing other types of assault or murder, but they can't picture themselves committing a sexual assault. So it's like, to give you an example, let's suppose you've seen a video, right, of a man just whipping a child, right? He's whipping a child is screaming. You have to think about, okay, what did the child do? Exactly how many lashes, is justified for what he did or whatever like that. That's for the people who are old school and they believe in whippings, But the people who are new school, maybe they don't believe in whippings. But anyway, they have to have it's a debate about it. But if you look at a picture, or let's say a video of a man, he's fondling a child sexually, you automatically could go to, because there's no legitimate reason why a person should be doing that. So that's another thing. That's entwined with that. When you talk about a sexual offense, a person could automatically be reviled. When you talk about another offense, just like say if you look at a video, see somebody get beat up outside a bar, before you really judge the beaters, you'll be like, okay, what did he do? Why are they beating him? So I wouldn't really get into that argument too much, except to say that you tell a person, look, it would be terrible if that happened to your kid, but do you really would rather them be dead? That doesn't make any sense. But I see I'm at 8 minutes, so let me go on to the other chapters here so I can tell you what to expect in this book. Now they have different chapters. Let's chapter 1, employment is more than a job, right? And then they have people that are giving their stories about trying to find employment while they're on the registry, and they have stories about people who get employed, but someone looked them up and they go and get them fired and stuff like that. And when you think about it, you say, listen, this book, when you buy this book, you should also, these stories, you pick one of the chapters that fits the person that you're talking to, and you're trying to relate. How can I say relate? Get the person to empathize, right? And the people that are full of like hatred, you're not gonna get them. But let's say you have many people out there say, "What's the big deal? You just registered and stuff like that. It doesn't make it's not punishment. How is it really hurting you?" And then when you can use these real life stories to explain how it's actually punishment, right? So employment is more than a job. Think about this though. When somebody said, "Well, They went in and they the small business owner, they went in and told that person, why you got this sex offender, quote unquote, working for you, blah 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 blah, and then so they get the person fired. We're not, because they say we're not going to patronize your business anymore. You say fine, okay. What is more safer for a person to be working or a person unemployed? Which has the better chance of not violating? And I'm not talking about violating your vagina. I'm talking about violating you in society. A person who's employed or a person who's unemployed. So by doing that, you're actually making it more safer, making the society less safer. That is, by doing that, because these people that will go in and try to get people fired when they're working a job or whatever like that. If the man that they got fired from washing dishes at the restaurant and stuff like that, let's say that same man was in front of that same restaurant begging. He's begging for money. They wouldn't say anything. Why? Because see what this chapter say? Employment is more than a job. See, when he's working, he's doing something with dignity. It has dignity to do that. And the people who are hateful don't want a person who's been convicted of a sexual offense, no matter how far in the past, to have any type of dignity. So that's really what that's about. So when you're talking to people who are like, they're not really hateful or nothing like that, but they're kind of like, don't see what's the big deal, you register, you could just tell them about that part. It prevents people from getting employment. And if that person owns a store, you say, listen, a person that's employed will more likely buy out your store as opposed to stealing from your store. Right? So that's why you should want people to work. And don't be complaining about people on food stamps and stuff like that if you're going to keep barring people from work. So from just learning about people's personal stories, you can have some utility from the book, how you can use the book to relate to other people and humanize the people whose stories are being told. Does it help to make people homeless? That's chapter 2. Of course it does it, right? Because you have a lot of times people will have a place to go, but they'll put like a restriction. Oh, well, this is 100 feet from a school, and all this kind of stupid stuff, right? And it does not help. Which is more safer? Have people have a place to call home, or people that are homeless? Which keeps the society more safer? So let's go back to the first example chapter and the second chapter. Homeless in the job. You say, listen, because they say sex offenders are like animals. These people are animals, right? They say, okay, let's say you have this dog and he's chained up for 8 hours a day. And the government said this dog is dangerous and he will bite you in the vagina. But he's chained up 8 hours a day. And you go and protest, get this dog out of here. Okay, they cut the chain. Now, where's the dog now? At least you know where he was at 8 hours a day. At least you knew where the quote-unquote sex offender was at 8 hours a day. At least you know where the quote-unquote sex, I'm using that in quotations. Like I said, I use self-respecters. But if the person lives somewhere, you know where, but if they're homeless, they have no place to live. How do you know where they are? How do you know what they're doing? How do you know how desperate they are? You're actually making the society unsafe. So you can use these chapters in the book as you're talking to people who are reasonable, right? And get them to kind of like change their point of view. Some of them anyway. Chapter 3, restricting the right to travel. No registrants allowed. Registrants not allowed, that's chapter 4. Chapter 5, alive but not alive. Meaning that, you always have this shadow hanging over your shoulder. And chapter 6, banishment and harassment. Chapter 7, families are collateral damage. The chapter I would pick out mostly is the chapter that deals with employment and homelessness. But for these other chapters, especially when you have banishment and harassment, families are collateral damage. Families are collateral damage, which is chapter 7, in two ways. One way, the people harass the families, right? People harass the families of people who are on the registry. Another way is when it takes away choice. And it's not even just for the families. So let's say if When they first came out with these scams, they call them schemes, but let's call them scams, right? They would say, well, we're just going to notify you. This is so you could protect yourself. You could protect. We could get this information out to the public. That's how it starts off. But then it switches, saying this person can't be around children. So, you may feel that way, but it takes your choice away. Shouldn't you have the choice? Let's say if a family member of yours were convicted, and you say, well, I never want this person around my children, but that's your choice. But don't you want to make that choice as opposed to somebody coming in and saying your uncle so-and-so or whatever, cousin, whatever, can't be around kids, it can't be around your kids? It's like the things you say yes to, you may be also saying no to yourself on the backside. You're saying yes to this law, but you're also saying no to your right to choose, if I'm explaining that right. Now, because a lot of people may say something like, why should we care about the rights of a rapist or somebody or something like that? Well, it's two kinds of law. You have the factual law, what they call it something else, but it escapes me at the moment. Then you have the procedural law. And the procedural law, the way how the law is implemented is actually more important to you and anyone else than the factual law. The factual law affects the parties involved, but the way how the case is processed, the way how laws are implemented, affects all of us. Perfect example. Ernesto Miranda and the woman that he raped are both dead. But we live with this Miranda law now, and our kids and maybe our kids, grandkids will live with that. So what happened between those two affect them and the people who are close to them. But the Miranda law, do you want to give up your Miranda rights? Or do you want to wait till you say, well, we should just, when a quote unquote sex offender gets his rights violated, we should just let it go and just wait till a more palatable person gets charged. Man, that may be 5 or 10 years later. It's a lot of these court rulings that came from cases that were sex cases that gave you your rights. So it's not just about what the person did, it's the procedures that goes along with that, like how the law is implemented. Like if you're saying that it's okay for let me see, they have a section here, probation and parole, that it's okay to make people take polygraph. Well, they talk about probation and parole in the book. You got people's personal stories. If you're saying that, okay, fine, but you're also saying that it's okay to violate Miranda, to be questioning people, put people under inquisitions, even if you think they did commit a crime. People shouldn't be forced to self-confess to any type of crime. It's up to the government to prove that. So, if you're going to talk to people about this, look at the flip side. Tell them, not you look at the flip side, because if you're watching this video of me, you're probably already quiet. Have the people look at the other side of it. When you're saying yes to this, you're also saying yes to something else. I said no in the beginning, but I think that's a better example. Instead of saying yes to this, you're saying no to your rights. But if you're saying yes, they could violate this person, you're also saying yes, they could violate you also. The last thing I'll say about this is that many of us probably already know that, when they want to have oppression against the population, they pick up a certain section of people that they feel is unpopular and impose it on them. Once it gets legitimized, then it spreads to everything else. I think I've seen on Professor Horowitz's page before, Twitter page, about in Chicago, they're having people, like, if you had a crime with a gun, you have to register and stuff like that. See, if that's true, I didn't look more into that. See how it's spreading? And I also read myself about in Florida. I don't know if this is statewide. Certain counties, you have to register as a felon. You see, the time to stop it is when they first started imposing it on people who are convicted of sexually based offenses, but people didn't do that. They just went along with that. So it's too late for that, but it's not too late to put a stop to this. But anyway, that's my unprofessional review of the book. 8 chapters. Have people's real life stories in there, and where they're speaking about what they're going through and what they have been through. And also, I read her other book, Protecting Our Kids, How Sex Offender Laws Are Failing Us. Now, I can't give a review on that one. Why? Because it's already 20 minutes. Over 20 minutes. I talked too long already. And also because I read this a while ago. I'd have to read it again. But, hey, hope I didn't ramble on too long. And I hope I said something of substance within these almost 21 minutes. Well, if you like this video, give it a like. Subscribe to the channel. Right? If you against people who are convicted of sexual offenses, just hate them, whatever like that, and you dislike this video, hit the thumbs down button. But however, if you dislike this video, hit the thumbs down button 2 times, just to be sure. As I said, thanks for viewing this video, and enjoy your day.